Hello crew! Alright, the first of two videos this afternoon. The first one is going to deal primarily in food webs, and the second is going to deal with your predator-prey relationships. Alright, here is your new TEK 811A. The student is expected to describe producer-consumer, predator-prey, and parasite-host relationships as they occur in food webs within marine, freshwater, and terrestrial ecosystems. Of course, if you have forgotten, terrestrial means on the land. Now, we talked about this a little bit in class, all about food webs. Whatever your role is in a food web, all living things need energy. Your role depends on how you obtain energy and how you interact with other living things in the ecosystem. You will either be a producer, that is to say you only produce, you're a flower, you're a tree, you're a grass. You're a consumer, you eat one of these things, or you're a decomposer in that you eat everything after it dies. Producers, right here, we have our traditional producer roles, the grass, the bushes, the trees. Consumers, first level, something like deer. Second level, something like wolves. Deers eat grass, wolves eat deer. And then decomposers eat everything, things like mushrooms and bacteria. It all starts with producers, and all producers get their energy from the sun through photosynthesis. Sun shines down on our plants, they take in water, nutrients from the soil, and you get energy. The consumers can play a whole lot of roles. You could be either an herbivore in that you only eat plants, you could be a carnivore in that you only eat meat, or an omnivore like us in that you eat plants and animals. Here are our categories. Herbivores eat grasses like our cows and our grasshoppers. Carnivores eat meat like our crocodiles and our wolves, and our omnivores, us and bears. Decomposers function as nature's recyclers, bacteria, fungi, and even some animals like the vulture that we mentioned in class today. Food chains, as we mentioned, are sort of unrealistic. This isn't how things actually work. You don't have the, little plant and then the grasshopper and then the bird and then the cat, because cats don't just eat birds and birds don't just eat grasshoppers. You have much more complicated relationships. In this pond food web, as opposed to a food chain, things start to get a little bit more realistic. Here you have your plankton, your producers, being eaten by mayflies and dragonflies, and salamanders eat the dragonflies and mayflies, and salamanders are eaten by eagles, and so on and so on and so on, as there's the big interplay. Remember, food webs are a little bit more realistic because if you lose one organism, you might lose other organisms. In the case of this food web, if the frog dies, suddenly you have more mayflies and you have more dragonflies. That means you have more salamanders, and that means you have more bald eagles. But the more bald eagles you have, the more trout they're going to be eating, and so trout populations go down. And when trout populations go down, phytoplankton populations go up, and it is a cycle. This isn't to say that all of a sudden bald eagles are going to take over the world. It's just a cycle that keeps on going and going and going. Remember, if you lose one organism, you can potentially lose many. These are two different kinds of very different ecosystems, and you will have very different roles in each one. In coral reefs, you have much more biodiversity than you do in deserts, and so it's easier to tip the scales one way or the other in coral reefs. Here is a food web from a deciduous forest. Oh dear, I believe it's been cut off. Down here you have some clover, and you have alder bushes get eaten by the deer. Again, mosquitoes. This isn't to imply that you have giant mosquitoes out there eating deer. It is simply to imply that mosquitoes feed off of anything that has blood. Now here is a somewhat more realistic food chain like you would find in the food web like you'd find in the ocean. Over here you have your algae and your kelps, your producers down here. They are eaten by smaller herbivorous fishes and invertebrates. They are eaten by sea stars. They are eaten by sea otters. And you have the whole big circle of life, as our friend the Lion King put it. Okay. This is just a very, very quick review of food webs. The main point here is that if you change one point in the food web, you could potentially change all the points. Now, in today's second video, we're going to be talking specifically about predator-prey relationships. So watch that one next. All right, thanks, guys.